Bruchot habaot, ladies. And thank you so much for coming out on this very, very cold night. It's mamash a mesirut nefesh that you made. So I want to thank you. Kadosh Baruch Hu yimaleh et kol mishalot libchem letova levracha. May you see the merits coming to fruition as a result of your mesirut nefesh. Tonight's shiur is dedicated leilui nishmat Teila bat Esther, Rav Moshe Bonim ben Yona, Arya ben Yafa, Yeva bat Livka, Sarah bat Yedida, Luba bat Rivka, and for the refuah shalema of Miriam bat Rachel, Avram Yizka ben Fruma Shendel, and Moshe ben Chana. Anyone else have a refuah shalema? Kol Chole Am Yisrael, and also to the guy from North Korea who needs a refuah shelema. The president of North Korea needs a serious refuah shelema because he's a nutcase. What's the refuah nefesh he needs? Amen. You could say amen. You should have a refuah nefesh and be a good leader. Amen. Okay, we have a lot to do tonight. First of all, I have a very, very, for me it's a beautiful announcement. We are now trying to, we'll see if it can happen before Pesach, I'm trying to renovate the apartment a little bit so that we can have a much bigger space. So, Be'ezrat Hashem, I hope that, right now we're in the middle of negotiations with a contractor to come and break down these walls. Yeah. Break down the walls so that this entire space becomes an all Sarah center. Wow. So more ladies can fit here, more tables can fit here. Because all the other times we were like congregating in this little room, and when we wanted to have like big parties, we couldn't. I could only invite like 30 ladies and everyone's sitting like this, squash. It's like, you know. So I just wanted to give you the good news that Be'ezrat Hashem, we hope that by Pesach it should be done. And you'll have a new center. You'll new center, and of course, whoever wants to help us with it, you know, we're always, you know, you're always more than welcome to open your hand to this, because this house is your house ultimately. This is the place where you congregate. But anyway, Asara B'Tevet. Tomorrow is Asara B'Tevet. Very, very, very important fast day. The first mention that we see of the 10th of Tevet as a fast day appears in Zechariah Hanavi, alav shalom, where the pasuk mentions the fast of the 10th month. The 10th month starting from Nisan, which is the month of Pesach. If you count 10 months from that, it's Tevet. So the fast of the 10th month is the fast of Asara B'Tevet. The Aruch HaShulchan explains why this day is so significant. You see, on the 10th day of Tevet, several thousand years ago, the wicked king of Bavel, whose name was Nebuchadnezzar, he was a very evil king, he laid siege to the city of Yerushalayim. A siege means that he came with all his troops and he surrounded Yerushalayim with all his men in order to capture Yerushalayim. And the event is mentioned in Sefer Melachim Bet, where we're told the following. I'm going to read you the words. Vayehi vishnat hatshi'it lemalcho, and it was in the 9th year of Nebuchadnezzar's reign. He was king already for 9 years. B'chodesh ha'asiri ba'asor lachodesh, in the 10th month, on the 10th day of the month, Ba Nebuchadnezzar melech Bavel, hu vechelo al Yerushalayim. Nebuchadnezzar, king of Bavel, came, he and his entire army, upon Jerusalem. Vayichan aleha, and he encamped against it. It's very interesting that we're talking about the siege of Yerushalayim the night before Asara B'Tevet, and here we have this rumor, we don't know yet if it's true, that the United States isn't doing so well with North Korea. So I'm sure somewhere in that picture Jerusalem is going to be involved, because somehow Jerusalem is always involved. Every war, they point the arrows towards Yerushalayim. But at the time of the siege, there were already Jews who were living in Bavel, like the holy Navi Yecheskel alav shalom. What happened? Hashem came to Yecheskel through a nevuah, through a prophecy, to inform him about the siege of Yerushalayim, and he commanded Yecheskel to write it down. What did HaKadosh Baruch Hu command Yecheskel to write down? The Aruch HaShulchan explains that HaKadosh Baruch Hu wanted Yecheskel to write down the month and the day that he received the prophecy, that he received the nevuah. Why? Because on that very day, the siege of Yerushalayim was taking place. Bavel was Iraq. Yerushalayim is in Eretz Yisrael. How were the Jews supposed to know in Iraq 3,000 years ago what's going on in Yerushalayim? So HaKadosh Baruch Hu informed the Navi through prophecy. He told him, by the way, write it down. Right now, at this very moment, Nebuchadnezzar and his entire army are surrounding Jerusalem. Write it down. But why was this event so significant that Yecheskel had to be notified through a nevuah? And Hashem even wanted him to write down the date. Why? You see, at that time in Bavel, there were many false prophets, many false Nevi'im. These false Nevi'im used to spread the word that the Bet HaMikdash is never going to be destroyed. They told the people, don't worry, the Bet HaMikdash is never going to be destroyed. The Jewish nation is never going to go into the Galut, don't worry. These were the kinds of fakers who wanted to fool Bnei Israel into thinking that prophecies of gloom and doom should be ignored. It's the kind of people who tell you, why do we always have to listen to stories of gloom and doom? This generation is already suffering so much. We want to hear good things. We want to be besimcha. We want to serve Hashem out of love. Don't tell us bad things. Tell us only good things. These people were dreaming. These people want to live in a false world of utopia that doesn't exist, at least not according to the words of the true Nevi'im, because the world is falling apart all around them. Jewish people are abandoning their faith every day because they're being pulled in by the secular world. Fires are killing young kids and their mothers. People are dying from rare diseases. Children are being born to the world sick. Not to mention the shidduch crisis and everything else that's going on in the world. And these people want to use the excuse of all the pain and suffering as a justification to relinquish their responsibility of doing tshuva. Because there's so much pain and suffering, we can't hear it anymore. Please don't give us any musar. We don't want musar. And we have to tell these people, because there's so much pain and suffering, you have to hear the musar. Otherwise, it's only going to get worse. But these false Nevi'im, they wanted to make the people feel good. They wanted to appease all those people in Am Yisrael who wanted to turn a deaf ear to the truth because it obligated them to change. So it's easier to take a more optimistic approach and hope for the best rather than face the reality of HaKadosh Baruch Hu's warnings. But let me tell you what happened to our poor nation as a result of what I call fake optimism. The fake optimism that Klal Yisrael decided to latch onto. While these so-called prophets spread their message of falsehood, the true Nevi'im of Hashem, namely Yirmiyah HaNavi, alav shalom, he kept begging Am Yisrael to do tshuva and turn away from their evil ways. He kept warning the Jewish people that if they're going to continue to engage in all kinds of averot and ignore the nevuah, then the consequences are going to be grave. He warned the people that the Bet HaMikdash was indeed going to be destroyed. He cried in the streets saying that Bnei Israel are going to be taken in shackles out of their homeland and into the Galut. And do you know what happened when Yirmiyah was busy preaching the truth? You know how the people reacted when they heard his words of impending doom? You know what happened? They wanted to kill him. They kept saying, Yirmiyah, we're sick and tired of hearing prophecies of gloom and doom. Our generation needs to be uplifted. We need to be besimcha. Tell us something good, Yirmiyah. Tell us how good we are, because we want to do tshuva from love, not from fear. Well, let's see if that's really true. They ignored Yirmiyah Navi's words, and they latched onto all that phony optimism that was being preached to them by the false Nevi'im. Now those false Nevi'im gave them the good feeling that they wanted. They instilled a lot of hope into the hearts of the people. And they even reassured them that everything was going to be all right. So did Am Yisrael do tshuva from love? Yes or no?
Yes.
No.
No.
Because they felt so good about themselves that they neglected to do tshuva. And they continued in their ways. And then what happened? When that day finally arrived, and Nebuchadnezzar came with his entire army to lay siege on Yerushalayim, just like the true Nevi'im of Hashem warned them about. HaKadosh Baruch Hu wanted the Jewish people to know without a doubt that the Navi Yirmiyah was indeed telling the truth, and that all of his prophecies were emet. That's why HaKadosh Baruch Hu came to Yechezkel on that day, the day that the siege took place. And he told him everything that was going on in Yerushalayim, that Nebuchadnezzar had surrounded Yerushalayim. Hashem wanted Yechezkel to inform the Jews in Bavel of this tragic event. The event that the fake prophets said is never going to happen. Why? Why did he tell them write it down? So that the Jews in Bavel would finally realize that they made a terrible mistake by ignoring the warnings of the Navi, and that they didn't do tshuva. So HaKadosh Baruch Hu instructed Yechezkel to make note of this date, write it down so everyone will recognize who HaKadosh Baruch Hu's true messengers were. That everyone should know of the events and the consequences which they thought would never happen. The events that they didn't want to hear about because they wanted to live in La La Land. Everybody wants to live in La La Land, in what I call Never Never Land. It's never going to happen. To me, it's never going to happen. To us, it's never going to. It's called Never Never Land. Who lives in Never Never Land? Who lives in Never Never Land? Peter Pan. Is he real, Bichlal? Is he real? That's what I call a fake prophet. That's all the Peters and the Pauls and the Marys and all the saints. Never Never Land. Everybody's wanting to live in a La La Land. It reminds me, by the way, of a very cute story about a guy who wanted to live in La La Land. What's the La La Land he wanted to live in? He used to work in a place, and he took all his days off. He took all his vacation days, and now he used up all his days. And he wakes up one morning and he says, I don't feel like going to work these next few days, but let's see. He looks at the calendar. He says, I don't have any more vacation days left. I don't have any more sick days left. I have any more personal days left. So if I take a few days off, it's on my cheshbon. Yeah. I'm going to have to, it's going to come out of my salary. So I got to figure out a way to get my boss to give me a few days off and pay me. The guy's in La La Land. So he's thinking, how am I going to do it? And he says, I know how. I'm going to pretend I'm crazy. My boss is going to feel so bad for me because I'm working on a big project at work. He's going to feel bad for me that I'm going crazy from the project. He's going to let me go for a few days. He's going to tell me, go rest at home. So the next morning, he gets up, he goes to work, goes to the office, and he hangs himself up from the ceiling upside down, like this, upside down, with his feet on the ceiling and his head to the floor. His boss comes in, and he says, hey, what are you doing up there? And he says, I'm a light bulb. I'm a light bulb. So the boss says, you're crazy, you're crazy. Come down, אתה משוגע. Come down, I see this job is getting to you. You're working very hard. Come down, take a few days off on my cheshbon. Take 2-3 days, go home, relax. What do you mean light bulb? Go home. He realizes, I did it. Starts to pack up his things. And he starts to walk out. The blonde secretary sees him walking out. She starts to pack her things. She starts to go too. So the boss says, hey, you, where are you going? She says, what do you think, I'm going to work in the dark? Anyway, and that's the people who are living in La La Land, you understand? Anyhow, so therefore, the Aruch HaShulchan concludes that we fast on this day. Why do we fast on this day? We fast on this day because it marks the beginning of Am Yisrael's troubles, of Am Yisrael's sorrows. It is the first event in a long chain of events that resulted in the devastation of Yerushalayim, the destruction of the holy Bet Mikdash, the first one, the Galut of Am Yisrael, and all this because of those Jews who just didn't want to hear the truth, who claimed to want to do tshuva out of love and not fear, who claimed they're tired of stories of gloom and doom, while they're living their life of optimism in sin. The Gzerah was approaching closer and closer. You know how serious the fast of Asara B'Tevet is? Chachamim tell us that if this fast would ever fall out on Shabbat, which it can't because they already fixed the calendar, so it can't, but the Rabbanim tell us if Asara B'Tevet would ever come out on Shabbat, we would have to fast on Shabbat just like we fast on Yom Kippurim if Yom Kippurim falls out on Shabbat. That's how serious this fast day is. What a lesson this is to our generation, ladies. In all honesty, I have to tell you how I feel. Sometimes it feels like this generation, our generation, is living back in the 60s. In the world of the hippies. 1960s, the hippies, who lived their life like, everything's gonna be all right, everything's gonna be all right. Don't worry, be happy. Shh. Don't talk about problems. There are no problems. Hakol tov. And of course they're able to say that because they were high most of the time, the hippies from the 1960s. When you're drugged up, you're disconnected from the reality. But when the drugs wear off and you come back to the real world, you discover that the world you experienced when you were high, that was all an illusion. That wasn't the real world. So in the 60s, they kept getting high because it's easier to live in a world of make-believe than to face your reality. But there's another solution to the challenges of life than living in a world of dreams. There's another way. You could improve your ways. You could take a journey of self-introspection and make the necessary changes that will bring you happiness and improve the world just a little bit more. So let me give you an example of some famous 1960s quotes from hippies, things that hippies said, so that you understand the mentality of that generation and how it mirrors our society. Listen to this. One quote. Like a true nature's child, we were born to be wild. You hear that? Listen to this one. Go with the flow. That was another quote. Everybody just go with the flow. Here's another one. All I'm gonna do is just go on and do what I feel. Who said that? The legendary guitar player Jimi Hendrix was a famous legendary guitar player. He said those words of wisdom. Here's another quote. If you want to be free, because there's a million things to be. So be free. You know who said that? John Lennon. Should we say alav shalom? John Lennon. Look how his life came to an abrupt halt. He was assassinated one day, smack in the middle of the day in Manhattan. But the point is that it feels like our generation went back to the attitude of the 1960s. Nobody wants to face the reality. No one wants to deal with consequences. People want the freedom to be and do as they please. Nobody wants to hear any musar. They just want to be told how good it is, how good they are, and how wonderful things are going to be. People don't even want to believe that what the Nevi'im prophesied about this generation of Achit Yamim is going to come true. Some people say, well, we don't exactly know what it means. It's not for us to interpret. Are you kidding me? So let me understand this correctly. When a Kadosh Baruch Hu very clearly spells out over 98 psukim of warnings to our generation in Achrit Yamim in Parashat Bechukotai, we should ignore the Tochachot? We should assume that those 98 curses are blessings? Yes or no? No. We should continue to live life as is and not make any changes or listen to the words of the Nevi'im of the Tanakh. Chas v'shalom. There's no bracha in repeating the mistakes of the past. So let me read you some more famous quotes about history repeating itself. History repeats itself. Here's one quote. History repeats itself because no one was listening the first time. Smart quote. Here's another one. Those that fail to learn from history are doomed to repeat it. You know who said that? The famous Winston Churchill. And let me tell you what the genius Albert Einstein said, which sums it all up. He says like this. Insanity, you know what insanity means? Insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting different results. Remember that famous quote? Einstein is saying, if you keep repeating the mistakes of the past again and again, expecting that this time things are going to be different, that's the definition of insanity. That's the definition of craziness. You hear this? But perhaps Shlomo HaMelech, alav hashalom, the wisest of all men, said it most eloquently and to the point in his Sefer Mishlei. What did he say? He writes, Arum ra'a ra'a ve'istar ve'nistar, which means a cunning man saw harm and he hid. Ufeta'im avru ve'ne'enashu, but fools transgressed, they did averot, and they were punished. What does this pasuk mean? Rashi HaKadosh alav hashalom says on the words, Arum ra'a ra'a, this cunning man saw with his own eyes, Shem gave him a bracha, that he was able to see the punishment of what would happen if he did an avera. When he saw it, when he saw the punishment, he hid. How did he hide? Rashi says, how did he hide? He didn't commit the avera. He didn't do the avera. This man was smart. He realized that there are consequences to his actions. He saw the avera coming, so he hid from the avera, which means he decided to run away from the avera, not to commit the avera. You with me?
Yeah.
You understand?
Yes.
Now I was reading this pasuk, and the first thing that hit me, and I hope it hit you too, was the wording of the pasuk. You see, the word arum could mean cunning, which means sly or sneaky, could mean that, but it could also mean naked. Arum means naked. Ladies, where else in the Torah HaKdosha do we find a man who was arum, realized he was arum, and he hid?
Adam.
Who?
Adam.
Very nice. Adam Harishon. So let's go back to Bereshit for a moment and discuss what took place with Adam, because as we know, every story in our history is somehow rooted in the story of Gan Eden. Somehow, some way. You see, after Adam eats from the tree, he realizes he's what? He's arum, and he immediately hides from Hashem. Well, why is he hiding? Why do you think he would hide? Now, imagine the following scenario. Imagine that some CNN reporter sees Adam hiding behind a bush, and he wants to do an exclusive interview with Adam. So he asks Adam, he says, Mr. Adam, I see that you're crouching here behind the bush. You seem to be hiding from God. Can you explain to our viewers why you're hiding? If you were Adam, what would you tell the CNN reporter and all the viewers out there in TV land? What would you, if you were Adam, what would you tell this interviewer, this reporter? What would you tell the reporter? The reporter wants to know why you're crouching behind the bushes over there. So what would you say? Why are you hiding?
Because I did something I shouldn't have.
Because I did something I shouldn't have. So you're embarrassed?
I'm embarrassed.
You're embarrassed. Achaya, what would you tell the CNN reporter?
I did something wrong and I'm afraid I'm getting in trouble.
I did something wrong and I'm afraid that I'm going to get into trouble. Okay. You'd probably tell the reporter that you're closer to what you said. You're embarrassed because of what you've done. After all, here you were placed in Gan Eden. with the entire garden available to you for your enjoyment, and one little thing that God asked of you, which was not to eat from a certain tree, you didn't listen, and you went ahead and you ate from that tree. So you might be filled with shame because you disappointed your Creator and you just can't bear to face Hashem.
Yeah.
If you're hiding, people would think that the reason you're hiding is because you're embarrassed and ashamed of something that you've done. But surprisingly, the Torah tells us something else. When HaKadosh Baruch Hu asked Adam why he was hiding, what was Adam's response? Adam tells Hashem, Et kolcha shamati bagan va'ira ki erom anochi va'echabe. I heard your voice in the garden, Hashem, and I hid because I was naked. Somehow, Adam's first response to Hashem isn't that, Hashem, I'm embarrassed and I'm ashamed, but rather, I'm afraid because I'm not clothed. That's very interesting. The first thing that hits Adam after he commits the sin is that he's not wearing any clothing. Adam's awareness of being undressed was so strong, so profound and disturbing to him that it overshadowed any guilt he should have felt and any shame that he should have felt at having disobeyed the one commandment that was given to him by Hashem. So why is being arum so important to this story? Why is Adam's realization of not being dressed the one natural consequence of eating from the Etz Hadat? Meaning, if you eat from the Etz Hadat, you're going to realize what? That you're naked? Or that you made a sin? Which one should it be? But the first thing he realizes is that he's not dressed. So why would this realization be so disturbing that it's the only reason Adam can think of to explain why he's hiding? I'm hiding because I'm arum. Is being arum the only consequence of eating from the Etz Hadat? The question is, why was that so important? After eating from the Etz Hadat, why was that the first thing Adam and Chava noticed right away? Chachamim tell us, when Adam ate from the Etz Hadat, there was a change in the world. There was a shift in the world. It was a shift from a world of emet and sheker to a world of tov v'ra. There's a difference between the two. It was a shift from a world in which I could stand outside my own desires and I could look at the choices of life objectively, and that shifted to a world in which I was confined to see things only through my own desires. In other words, in the world before eating from the Etz Hadat, my ratzanot, my wantings, my desires did not interfere with the knowledge of what is emet and what is sheker. I could recognize very clearly what God wanted, and my own desires, no matter how powerful they were, they did not cloud my vision of the emet. I could see what was true, and I could choose the truth regardless of what I want. You hear that? It's very important. But after eating from the tree, that clarity became lost. And now, my desires And my personal wants are always getting in the way of emet. You hear? After Adam ate from the Etz Hadat, it became very hard for me and for you to see sheker. How so? Because my personal needs, your personal needs are always interfering with the sheker that's right there in front of you. Don't forget that the Etz Hadat was a tree of desire. And to eat from that tree meant to literally bring up the desires that were inside of you out from your very being to the surface. So whereas previously, before, desire was something that was outside of us. It's out there somewhere. But now, after eating from the Etz Hadat, we could fool ourselves into thinking that desire is actually a part of us, and it's hard for me to let it go. What I want, it's hard for me to let it go. What I need is hard for me to let go. So eating from the tree meant a change in that balance of the world. You with me?
Yes.
In the world of the Etz Hadat, before the sin, desire was a natural part of the human being. It was natural for you to want certain things. But the difference was that a person could recognize his desire. I could say, oh, I want something, but I could push it aside very quickly when I would see the truth opposite my want. Here is my want, here is the truth. I could see the both of them very clearly and then choose truth. But after Adam ate from the Etz Hadat, the balance shifted. And now our desires became the center of our lives to the extent that it's a force to be reckoned with. Now every day I have to satisfy my needs and my wants and my wishes. Suddenly in the world, after eating from the Etz Hadat, people see things through their eyes more than they see it through the eyes of Emet. I now see good and evil, and I call good and evil Emet and Sheker. And there's one big mess. There's one giant mass of confusion, and it makes it very difficult for me to distinguish between Emet and Sheker, and between Tov and Ra. So I want to take this a step further. Now, I made you some show and tells. When a person shoots an arrow, his intention is to hit the mark, to hit the bullseye, right? Shoot, arrow, where do I want to hit? The bullseye, the center point. Interestingly, the word chet, which means sin, signifies having shot a target and missed. How do I know that? I learn it from Sefer Shoftim. What does the pasuk say in Sefer Shoftim? Kol ze kolea ba'even al hasa'ara velo yachati, which means all these, our soldiers, were so good at a bow and arrow or at a slingshot that they could sling a stone at a hair's breadth and not miss. That's how good they were. You know those, in the olden days, they had the stone with the slingshot. If you held the hair like this, they could shoot and hit the hair. But the point is, the pasuk says that the word velo yachati, they would not miss. That's interesting. Yachati and chet are the same lashon. Chet means a sin. So what does that mean? In other words, when moral decisions are choices between emet and sheker, I am trying to hit a target when I make a decision in life. I'm trying to hit the bullseye when I make a moral decision in life. I'm trying to determine HaKadosh Baruch Hu's expectations of me, and I'm trying to act according to His Ratzon so that I can hit the mark. If I follow the Ratzon of Hashem, I hit the bullseye. You with me? So doing an Averah isn't just about punishment and feeling guilty. No. When I do an Averah, I missed the bullseye. I didn't hit the bullseye. I didn't hit my mark. It means that I failed to align myself with the reality called Ratzon Hashem. I failed. You with me?
Yeah.
So in the world, after eating from the Etz Hadat, I'm still trying to figure out what Hashem wants from me. And there's something that's clouding my vision of what He wants. Not only that, but it's not, at this point, it's not just about what Hashem wants anymore. It's about what I want. I now see my decisions through the veil of my own retzonot. But ladies, in this new world of Tov Vara, what we think is valuable, what we think is right, isn't necessarily what's right and what's valuable. Sometimes what we think is good and pleasing to us can come disguised as emet. Because we've become extremely, extremely subjective people. And in the world of subjectivity, Ra can disguise itself in very pretty clothes. And when it does, it's hard to know the difference between what's truly righteous and that which is really immodest and inappropriate. So when Adam ate from the tree, he suddenly realizes that he's unclothed because he's now exposed to this new reality. Who created that new reality? Adam. He now realizes that his own Ratzon ruined Hashem's Ratzon. He realized that the world changed and that he changed together with the world.
Yeah.
Adam realized that he was now, it's like riding in a new car. Imagine driving, where instead of sitting behind the steering wheel, he now found himself on the hood of the car. Now, that's a big dilemma if you're sitting on top of the hood. Because now Adam is thinking, how am I going to steer this big, powerful car if I can't even reach the steering wheel? That's why HaKadosh Baruch Hu asked Adam the famous question of Ayeka, which means, where are you? But Hashem wasn't asking Adam, where are you? Meaning Hashem wasn't asking for a specific location. Instead, Hashem was asking, where have you gone? Why aren't you here? And Chachamim in the Midrash Rabbah explain that Hashem was asking Adam, Adam, where are you? Yesterday you were with me and my Ratzon. And now you're with the Ratzon of the snake and your own Ratzonot. Now why did I find this very fascinating, this connection? because tomorrow is Asara B'Tevet.
Yeah.
Asara B'Tevet marks the siege of Yerushalayim prior to Nebuchadnezzar destroying the first Bet HaMikdash. And interestingly, the word Ayeka in Sefer Bereshit shares the same identical letters as the word Eicha. The word Eicha is a lamentation, it's a crying that describes the state of the Jewish people during the times of the first Churban Bet HaMikdash, when it all started with Asara B'Tevet. The Navi bemoans Yerushalayim, and he says, Eicha, look how the city of Yerushalayim sits all alone now. Yirmiyah Navi cries as he looks upon the destroyed city of Yerushalayim, and he mourns over the huge amounts of Jews who are no longer there because they've been taken into Bavel, into the Galut. And he's crying, he's saying, if only they would have listened to HaKadosh Baruch Hu's warnings. And in the story of Gan Eden, Adam and Chava are also exiled from the Gan. Just like Am Yisrael was thrown out of Eretz Yisrael, Adam and Chava were thrown out of Gan Eden.
Yeah.
And maybe just like Yirmiyah's Eicha, Hashem cries out to Adam with the word Ayeka. It's the same word. This word is a form of crying where Hashem bemoans the barrier, the wall that now exists between the human being and his creator. And this one word HaKadosh Baruch Hu was saying, I brought Adam into Gan Eden and I commanded him not to eat from the Etz Hadat. But he transgressed my command, so I decided to exile him from the Gan. And now that he's leaving Gan Eden, I'm crying and I'm lamenting and I'm saying, Ayeka, where have you gone? And years later in the future, Hashem says, I will bring the Jewish people into Eretz Yisrael with great miracles. I will give them my Torah. I will give them my mitzvot. But they will also transgress the laws. So I will have to decree the galut upon them as well. And when Am Yisrael are going to have to leave Eretz Yisrael, I will once again cry and lament and say, this time I'm going to say, Eicha, where have you gone? But guess what, ladies? Even as HaKadosh Baruch Hu banished us from Gan Eden, he gave us the tools that we'd need to succeed in the new world. Which new world? The new world that we created after we ate from the Etz Hadat. And that was a big chesed that he did with us. What were the tools that he gave Adam and Chava? He provided them with clothing with which they would cover their nakedness. Those clothes were very significant, ladies. First of all, by providing clothing for Adam and Chava, Hashem gave them the ability, Adam and Chava, to transition from the world of Gan Eden to a new world that they chose all on their own. Because you see, in this new world, you couldn't just walk around without clothing. Because the level of awareness was different. And the desires were now also different. So these clothes were a reminder of the world that Adam and Chava chose. And that world opposed the Ratzon of Hashem. That's why the name for an article of clothing is what? Beged. Ladies, the word beged is from the Lashon bgida. Bgida means a betrayal. Bgida means a betrayal. Adam and Chava betrayed HaKadosh Baruch Hu's ratzon by following the false hopes of the snake. And so HaKadosh Baruch Hu wanted Adam and Chava to be reminded of this betrayal and to make better decisions in the future. For this reason, ladies, we have to be so careful with the begadim that we wear. Because the clothes that Hashem provided us with, it's not just so we should be beautiful and presentable, but our begadim are a very stark reminder that human beings who possess free will don't always take into account the retzonot and the hopes of the Ribono Shel Olam. So just like a man, for example, has to look down and he sees his tzitzit, and the tzitzit reminds him of the 613 mitzvot, and if he sees the tzitzit, hopefully he will not make an avera. You're supposed to look at your clothing and realize, hey, beged comes from the word bgida. That means I betrayed Hashem. Well, I better make sure my clothing is tzniut. I better make sure my clothing makes a kiddush Hashem. And I better make sure that my clothing reminds me to do mitzvot and not to listen to the ratzon of Hashem. Now, and you see this, by the way, from the letters in the word beged, because the word beged has 3 consecutive letters of the Hebrew alphabet. Bet, Gimel, Daled. Bet, Gimel, Daled. It goes in consecutive order. What happened to the Aleph? The Aleph is missing here. Aleph, Bet, Gimel, Daled. What happened to the Aleph? It's gone. Chachamim say that Aleph that should have been there represents the one omnipotent being. Who's the one omnipotent being? The Ribono Shel Olam. It's missing from here because we could come to the level of betraying Hashem, being a boged b'Hashem, when we leave Him out of the picture. You hear that? So HaKadosh Baruch Hu wanted to do a double kindness with us by providing us with clothing. First of all, He wanted to remind us of the original sin of the Etz Hadat and the consequences. He wanted to remind us of what happens when we don't listen, when we don't follow the words of the Nevi'im, when we follow false Nevi'im and their ideologies and incorrect optimism. By reminding us of this sin through our clothing, we might just align our life with His ratzon so that we could receive bracha. That's one chesed. And the other chesed Hashem did by providing us with clothing can be seen through your own children. How? Ladies, if we walk away learning anything from the story of Gan Eden, which I just taught you, perhaps it should be this. When our children disappoint us and they make choices that we don't approve of, when they exchange the world that we carefully shaped for them and gave to them, and they changed that and they exchanged that world for an uncertain world of their own making, perhaps we too have to provide them with clothing for their journey, so to speak. What kind of clothing? What this? No. Every morning at the tefillah of Birkot HaShachar, we recite the words, Baruch Ata Hashem, Elokeinu Melech HaOlam, Malbish Arumim. Now, besides its simplistic meaning, perhaps now we can understand more deeply that we are now in this world outside Gan Eden. And we have to take a good hard look at the life that we chose, which is the world we're living in now, and it's a world that's devoid of true Torah value. It's a world that's now in constant conflict and doubt. It's a world that's competing with its creator and even shunning him, and worse, proclaiming that he doesn't even exist. It's a world that's naked from mitzvot. So the greatest chesed Hashem did with Adam and Chava after he punished them, dafka because they chose another world, was that he provided their descendants, that's me and you, with another kind of tree. First he told us, you can't eat from the Etz Hadat. But then he says, wait, now that I threw you out of the Gan, I'm going to give you a tree you can eat from. And that's the Etz HaChaim, is the tree of life. Even though we rebelled against Hashem, he gave us the tree of Torah and all its branches and all the mitzvot, which are the fruits of those trees. And through those mitzvot, we earn Olam Haba. That's even better than Gan Eden. Every mitzvah, Chachamim say, is like an article of clothing that dresses your neshama that comes to this world naked. The neshama doesn't have mitzvot when it comes to this world. And we know that the 613 mitzvot in the Torah are connected the various organs and sinews of a person's body. There are 365 sinews connected the 365 mitzvot lo ta'aseh in the Torah. And there are 248 limbs connected the 248 positive commandments. Together, they equal 613. That means every time you do a mitzvah, you are spiritually clothing that part of the body. You may not know which one, but you are. And you're protecting that part of the body. And you're even correcting that part of the body. You hear that? And after 120 years, the Zohar Kadosh says, when a person meets his creator, we're told that we're going to be dressed with the clothing of the mitzvot that we did in this world. The more mitzvot, the more ma'asim tovim, the more regal the clothing will be. You could look like a malka when you come in front of the Bet Din Shel Ma'ala. But if chaz v'shalom we go up to Shamayim without mitzvot, we're going to stand in front of the Bet Din arumim. And in the world of Emet, standing there like that would be a tremendous embarrassment. So the bracha of Malbish Arumim, it personifies our life here in this world after being thrown out of Gan Eden. And our mission is to allow Hashem to clothe our bodies and also our neshamot, so that we could choose life and earn Olam Haba. So the bracha of Malbish Harumim, it isn't just about the physical clothing. It's a recognition of the ultimate chesed that HaKadosh Baruch Hu does with us. That He gives us the ability through the tree of life, through the Torah, to earn the majestic spiritual clothing that we're going to be adorned with on that ultimate Yom HaDin when we stand before HaKadosh Baruch Hu. We're going to be able to stand there with grace, with dignity, with a modesty, and we'll be able to proudly proclaim that we chose the path of Hashem and not the path of the Nachash, not the path of the false Nevi'im, We'll be able to stand there without fear, without embarrassment, without shame, without regret, because the decisions that we made were because we listened to the messages of Hashem and we didn't repeat the mistakes of the past. We corrected the mistakes of the past. So our mission in this world, after the sin of Gan Eden, is to take a good, hard look at the world that we helped to create. And we have to ask ourselves the following question. Is this the world that Hashem intended for us to be in? No, I don't think so. And I think that judging by how the world seems to be running and the havoc that people are wreaking, we have to reevaluate our life and decide on a new path and do tshuva. And at this stage of the game, the way the world looks and the direction in which it continues to go, it really doesn't matter anymore how a person does tshuva, whether out of love, whether out of fear, as long as he does tshuva. If you did tshuva from pachad, from fear, it's okay. It's okay. It's no big deal. The main thing is that you should find your way back to Hashem somehow, some way. At this point, doesn't matter anymore. You know, I want to tell you a story, and with this I want to end. I used to work for a big organization in Israel that used to do a lot of kiruv rechokim, called arachim. And I worked for them a few years ago, and whenever they would have these weekend seminars, I would go. And the seminars were for people who were not so religious, or not religious at all, or who had a misguided view of Torah. And the shiurim, they followed a very structural pattern. The first class was proving that there's a God in the world, because some people don't believe in God. So the first thing we had to do was prove that there's a God. Great. Once we prove that there's a God, the next class is proving that the Torah was given by that creator and it wasn't written by men. It couldn't have been written by men. Once we prove that the Torah was given by Hashem, meaning it's divine, then the next class is proving that the mitzvot that are in the Torah have meaning. And that we have to listen to those mitzvot. And as we proceed from one class to the next, it's one level to the next, we arrive to a class called Nevuot Shehidgashmu, which means prophecies that came true. Prophecies that were written in the Torah 3,000 years ago, and they all came true. Now, some of these prophecies are not pleasant, but they were prophecies, and they were warnings, like the Inquisition is written in the Torah. Hitler is written in the Torah. And those prophecies were ignored. And the results for our people was not pleasant, to say the least. But by the end of this one lecture, almost always there's a few people in the audience who already they want to do tshuva and they want to take something upon themselves. They don't even wait till the end. Why? What pushes them to make that change? Is it the love that's projected in the psukim? Not really, because these prophecies are filled with warnings of gloom and doom. What is it? It's the warm and fuzzy feeling portrayed in the psukim? I don't think so. Because the psukim contain very strong messages of impending disaster if we don't listen to the words of Hashem. So why do these Jews do tshuva? These Jews do tshuva because they believe that if the first set of prophecies came true, then the second set of prophecies are also going to come true if something isn't done about it. As a matter of fact, in one of these seminars, one young woman wanted to take tzniut and Shabbat upon herself. After that lecture, after the lecture of that she saw all the nevuot, and one of her, she came up to the stage and she said, I want to take upon myself tzniut and Shabbat. Everybody, woohoo, is so happy, is a yofi, right? You know how it goes. And one of her friends was so upset, she yelled out at her. Her name was Sigalit, but for short they called her Siggy. So one of her friends yells out to her, Siggy, if you're doing tshuva from pachad, from fear, don't do it. Rather do tshuva out of love. They're just scaring you. You hear this? And Siggy had a very beautiful answer for her friend. She says to her, Dana, her friend's name was Dana, Dana, I'm not doing tshuva out of pachad, out of fear. I'm doing tshuva out of a sense of responsibility.
Yeah.
She said, this entire seminar, we're learning how Am Yisrael is like one body. And if one of the limbs of the body isn't working properly, the entire body feels it. So I'm doing tshuva out of a sense of urgency because Am Yisrael is in big trouble. And I have to face the fact that it could very well be that I'm that one limb that isn't helping the rest of the body heal. So I want to do tshuva because I care about my life, about my future, and the future of all our people, including you, Dana. And then she tells her, because Israelis, they think quick. She says to her, not only that, but even if I did tshuva from pachad, from fear, what's wrong with that? She says to her, when you were a little girl and you almost put your hand on the burning fire, on the burning stovetop, didn't your mother put the fear of heaven in you? You should stay away from the fire. What did you tell your mother? Ima, you're scaring me into not wanting to touch the fire. I want to be able to not touch the fire from love.
Yes.
Ma'ava? That's ridiculous, she says to her. She says, Zemegochach. So she says, sometimes we need a little pachad in order to shake us out of our dream state and out of our laziness. So she says, Aval hayom, I'm doing tshuva out of a sense of responsibility. She says, and you know what, Dana? She says, in a way, that's the greatest ahava I can show towards my fellow Jews. Because I care about all these prophecies and I believe them to be true. I care about what's going to happen to us if we ignore these warnings and if we move on without ever having done anything to change it. And then she did something that we never saw at any of the seminars of the young people. She turned to the rest of the girls in the audience there. There must have been 150 of them. And she tells the audience, she says, who else here believes that these nevuot are emet and the Torah is emet? So a bunch of hands went up in the air, of course. And then she says, if you believe that these nevuot are emet, come up here with me right now. And you also take something upon yourself for the sake of Am Yisrael. Who's going to join me on this stage? I'm not exaggerating when I tell you. Half the audience went up to that stage, and every single girl there that night took something upon herself. Those girls on that night tried to align themselves with the Ratzon of Hashem so that they could reap all the benefits of a new world that Hashem is going to introduce to us very soon. And when that day comes, And HaKadosh Baruch Hu opens the curtains and unveils the reality. We're going to see the true face of the Nachash. His end is drawing near. The question is, on which side of the curtain do you want to be standing on when that reality hits? I would prefer to be on the side of Emet, on the side of Hashem and His Ratzon. I prefer to please my Creator and not disappoint Him, because He's done so much to ensure that we succeed in this world of chaos, in this world of balagan. So ladies, remember tomorrow what an important day it is. Let's take the lessons of this upcoming day of Asara B'Tevet and the lessons of Bereshit and move towards the path of Emet, towards HaKadosh Baruch Hu and His divine will. And Be'ezrat Hashem, we're going to be Zeicha to see miracles and wonders and partake in a new world that we're also going to help to create. Be'ezrat Hashem. Amen. Ken Yiratzon.